The New York Islanders face a must-win game tonight against the Blue Jackets after a tough overtime loss to the Flames. Plus, they made two moves for the future. We've got all that and more on today's Locked On Islanders podcast.
You're Locked On Islanders, your daily podcast on the New York Islanders. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome, everybody, to the Monday edition of the Locked On Islanders podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. I want to thank everyone who makes Locked On Islanders your first listen every day. Don't forget to subscribe on YouTube or wherever you listen to podcasts so you get new episodes as soon as they drop. I'm Gil Martin. I've been covering the New York Islanders for almost 2 decades, and I wrote the book Ice Wars on the history of the Islanders' rivalry with the Rangers from 1972 to the present day. So glad you could join us to talk a little Islanders hockey today as we prepare for the home stretch of this 2024-2025 season. We have to talk about the Islanders' overtime loss to the Flames. They made 2 big moves as far as the prospect pool is concerned over the weekend, and we'll preview tonight's must-win game against the Blue Jackets, all that and more on today's show. Saturday afternoon, late afternoon, the 4 o'clock matinee against the Calgary Flames was a tough one to swallow. And let's face it, this was a game that the New York Islanders probably should have won, and yet for the second straight game, they end up leaving points on the table. They allowed the Montreal Canadiens to get their game to overtime on Thursday, giving Montreal a point. And then against the Flames, the Islanders held a 3-1 lead in the third period and were unable to get that win, had to settle for the overtime loss. And, while this is a good thing that the Islanders now have points in 5 straight games, they have now left 2 points on the table in their last 2 games. And hopefully these are not points that will come back to hurt the Islanders when the season is all over. And look, there were a lot of good things in this game against the Flames. I think Marcus Hogberg played a solid game. Not a great game, not a bad game, but a solid game as the backup goalie. And let's face it, he doesn't get to play all that often, probably will not get to play all that often. I think Patrick Waugh did the right thing by starting him against the Flames out of all the games on the schedule. We know that you don't want to ride Ilya Sorokin into the ground. If you're going to make the playoffs, you need Sorokin at his best to get there. And once you do get there, so giving Hogberg a spot start is a good thing. I have to give kudos to the fourth line. And I love this new fourth line of Kyle McLean, Mark Gatcomb, and Maxim Tsyplakov, because you now have a little chemistry with this line, with 3 players who each kind of have something that they do well. You have Gatcomb, who has given the line more physicality and hustle. You have McLean, who scored a goal in that game against the Flames, as did Gatcomb. And then Maxim Tsyplakov, who is probably the best of the 3 at putting the puck in the net. He had 2 assists in Saturday's loss to the Flames. So that fourth line ending up scoring 2 of the Islanders' 3 goals in this game. And, each of the 3 players on that fourth line played between 11 minutes and 16 seconds and 11 minutes and 35 seconds. So these guys were out there for a decent amount of time in this game doing their thing, and that was definitely helpful for the New York Islanders. Simon Holmstrom continues to play well. Bo Horvat with another goal. He has really come alive. Everydayers will remember we talked about players that needed to step up after the Islanders traded Brock Nelson. And clearly, Bo Horvat was one, Simon Holmstrom, Maxim Tsyplakov. These are all guys. We mentioned Anthony Duclair, but we are seeing a lot of these players actually doing what we hoped they would do, and that was good to see. So, there were a lot of reasons for hope in this game, and yet there were reasons for frustration as well. Clearly, in overtime, the Islanders victimized by a situation where they just couldn't get a line change. In fact, the Islanders in overtime did not touch the puck for about 2 minutes. The Islanders won the opening faceoff in overtime, controlled the puck for the first 30, 40 seconds, and then lost the puck and didn't touch it again for about 1.5 to 2 minutes, maybe a little bit more, while the Flames just took shot after shot and kept the puck in the Islander zone. If they needed to regroup, they went back and regrouped. And in the end, that ended up hurting the Islanders because they couldn't get the puck. They couldn't get a line change. They had an exhausted trio of players out there, and Nazem Kadri ends up putting home the game-winning goal. And here's the thing. Again, this is one of those games where you really need to win, because the Islanders, Matt Coronado scored a couple of goals for the Flames, rather. Long Island native, great story. His parents are in attendance. And it was, nice to see. If it wasn't the Islanders he was playing against, I guess, or if the Islanders had won the game, I'd feel even better about it. But when you take a lead with less than 3 minutes to go in a crucial game and you're at home, you got to hold the lead. And it took less than 30 seconds for Jonathan Huberdeau to tie this game and send it into overtime. When you've got a 3-2 lead with less than 3 minutes left in the game, good teams, most of the time, hold on to that lead. And it ends up costing you only 1 point because they did get to overtime. But you've just got to be better. And again, you got guys in this lineup who are a mixed bag. Noah Dobson, 2 assists, but also a -2 in this game. His offense is coming back. His defense remains a big problem for the Islanders. He is essentially a mixed blessing, but that's better than what he was a couple of months ago, where his defense was terrible and his offense was inconsistent. So it's a step forward. But again, Noah Dobson needs to be a little better in his own zone. Same with Tony DeAngelo. He had an assist, but he was also one of those guys out there who couldn't get to the puck in overtime and ended up being on the ice too long, had nothing left in the tank, and the puck ends up in the back of the net. So overall, this was sort of a mixed blessing for the New York Islanders. They only had 1 power play chance and only had to kill 2 penalties. Special teams did not contribute to any of the goals in this game. But here's the thing. The Islanders have left 2 points on the board in their last 2 games. They gave or allowed Montreal to pick up an important point Thursday. They left a point out there that they should have had but didn't have on Saturday. If you're going to make the playoffs, and again, as of right now, the New York Islanders' playoff chances, according to Money Puck, are at 28.2%. So if you want that, 28% chance to come true, and you're going to make the playoffs, you can't be leaving points on the table against Montreal, a team you're battling for that last playoff spot against, and Calgary, a team like I didn't care If the game went to overtime and the Islanders won it, it wouldn't bother me because the Flames are in the Western Conference. Let them get a point. It doesn't affect the Islanders in any major way. And yet, with 13 games left on the schedule, the Islanders are just 2 points out of a playoff berth. And yet, again, so many teams that they are battling with and that they need to beat when you're playing the other teams, whether it's in your conference or the other conference, that are fighting for those final playoff spots. You need to take advantage of your opportunities, and the Islanders just haven't done it enough over the last couple of games. And the next game that you play, next 2 games, tonight against the Blue Jackets, and then Wednesday against the Vancouver Canucks. Again, 2 more teams that you're battling for, that are battling for playoff spots, tooth and nail. Vancouver in the West, Columbus in the East. These are the easier games, and I'll put it in air quotes because there aren't too many easy games left on the Islanders' schedule. But these are the games you need to pick up the points in, and the Islanders have to find a way to get that done. Hero and GOAT of the game against Calgary. The fourth line is going to be my hero of this game. The way they played, kind of inspired hockey. That, to me, is the hero of the game. So that is Kyle McLean, Mark Gatcomb, and Max Tsyplakov. They're going to share the hero of the game. And then go to the game is just allowing a goal, and this is for the whole team, 30 seconds after you score what should have been the game winner, allowing a goal at home against a team that is not in the playoffs as of now or is just fighting for a playoff berth as of now. You've got to be better. So let's see how it all plays out. Don't like leaving points on the table, but I'm encouraged by 5 straight games with at least a point, 3-0-2 in those 5 games. So we'll see how it plays out going forward. We have got more to discuss on today's show. The Islanders make 2 moves as far as prospects are concerned. We'll talk about that and how they affect the team. We'll talk about tonight's game against the Blue Jackets, and a member of all 4 Stanley Cup winning teams is our Islanders' birthday of the day. This guy also played in the WHA. Let's see if you can guess who it is. All that coming up on today's Locked On Islanders podcast. Today's episode is brought to you by Wonderful Pistachios. Looking for a snack that's both delicious and nutritious? Crack into a good source of protein with Wonderful Pistachios. Wonderful Pistachios is one of the highest protein nuts. Each 1-ounce serving has 6 grams of protein, giving you over 10% of your daily value. Plus, they're packed with fiber and better-for-you unsaturated fats to help keep you feeling fuller longer. Personally, I love the no-shells variety. It's the perfect grab-and-go snack for busy days. Whether I'm snacking at my desk, on a road trip, or just need a quick protein boost, they're always my go-to. And if you love cracking open every shell for that satisfying crunch, the in-shell options are a classic favorite. So get snacking and get cracking with the snack that packs a protein punch. Visit Wonderful Pistachios to learn more. That's wonderfulpistachios.com. So the New York Islanders made a couple of moves over the weekend that I think a lot of fans will find interesting, to say the least. And these are not moves that are going to affect the team this year. But when you realize that the Islanders have been struggling with prospects and developing prospects and signing prospects and getting something in return for their prospect pool, and you realize how poorly the Bridgeport Islanders have played this year, these are moves that can help the team in the future. So first, the Islanders signed an NCAA college free agent, Gleb Veremyev. He went to Colorado College, now signed a 2-year entry-level contract, but it does not take effect until next season. He is a native of New Jersey. His parents are immigrants from Russia, and he just finished his junior season at Colorado College, although his freshman season, he missed almost all of it due to an ACL injury. Here is a guy who is 6'4", so he's got good size, and he is a center with a high hockey IQ. He told the Colorado Springs Gazette, "Thought I had the best fit with the Islanders, obviously, and here we are today." Now, he is looking at as a bottom six kind of a forward as his ceiling, but realistically, here is a guy who can give, at the very least, the Bridgeport Islanders some depth next year. I don't think he's NHL ready at this point, but certainly, to add a little size and a little physicality and a little depth to Bridgeport with a guy who is, again, 6'4", 200 pounds, a native of New Jersey. He had 9 goals and 17 points this year in 37 games for Colorado College. And last year, in 2023-2024, 15 goals, 28 points, 55 penalty minutes in the same 37-game schedule. So I think this is a kid who can at least participate in Bridgeport. One thing, though, the Islanders still need to do, they need Bridgeport to not become the place where prospects go to die. And I don't mean die as in, literally, but their hockey careers go to die, where you enter Bridgeport as a prospect and you leave as a question mark, like as in, what happened to that guy? We don't want that to happen to Veremyev. So fingers crossed that they can get things improved in Bridgeport and that Veremyev can give them a little more depth, a little more talent, and play the role that hopefully he can play. Meanwhile, the Islanders also announced that Jesse Pulkkinen, the big defenseman, who the Islanders drafted in the second round in 2024, he has signed and will play with the Bridgeport Islanders for the first time. He is 6'6", and he's got a big frame, long arms, and still needs to work on his skating, still needs to pick his spots, I would say, a little better as far as when to be aggressive, when to get into the play, and when to hang back. But Pulkkinen at 6'5", 216 pounds, 6'5" or 6'6", depending on who you ask, had 3 goals and 8 points this year playing in his native Finland. And that was, 26 penalty minutes. He was a +1. He is 20 years old, just turned 20 in late December. And look, his skill set is such that, some scouts are just so high on his potential. And, he was a third pair guy. He has spent some time in the World Juniors and some other international competitions for Finland. And we'll see whether or not Pulkkinen is ready. But look, Bridgeport right now having one of the worst seasons this century of any team in the AHL. That's the last 25 years. And now, you've got him. You've got Isaiah George. You've got Callie Odelius. So you've got a few players down in Bridgeport who, at least in theory, can give the New York Islanders a little bit of hope that there are some prospects there. And, if Pulkkinen can develop, and I suggest every day, as you may recall, that when I had Hadi Kalakesh of Locked On NHL Prospects on, he talked about Pulkkinen and how high he was on Pulkkinen. So, go back in the YouTube feed or in the audio feed and find those episodes. I think there were 2 of them, and you'll get a better idea of what Pullkkinen's potential is. And look, he's eligible to play. The next game for Bridgeport is this Wednesday night. We will obviously keep an eye on him in our farm report every Wednesday for the rest of the AHL season. But to me, this is good news, assuming that the turmoil and the issues in Bridgeport don't hurt these two prospects. So Pulkkinen can play right now. That is, not an issue, but the contract basically for Veremyev doesn't start until next season, but it's going to be very interesting to see how this all plays out. We have got more to get to on today's show. Huge game against the Columbus Blue Jackets tonight. What will it take to win that game? We'll break it all down for you. Plus, we'll have our Islanders birthday of the day, all that and more on today's Locked On Islanders podcast. Today's episode is brought to you by Monarch Money. Ever check your bank account and wonder, where did all my money go? Between dining out, online shopping, and entertainment, it's easy to lose track, but that's where Monarch Money comes in. It's your personal CFO, giving you full visibility and control over your finances. Monarch Money isn't just a budgeting app. It's a complete financial command center. You could track all your accounts, investments, and spending in one place so you could stop managing your money and start building wealth. When I started using Monarch, I realized just how much money I was spending on food delivery. Now I budget smarter and save more. Instead of juggling multiple apps, you could use Monarch Money to check your finances, track spending, and even plan long-term goals. So take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use code LOCKEDONNHL at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. That's monarchmoney.com, code LOCKEDONNHL for half off your first year. The Islanders, the Blue Jackets, huge game tonight. If the Islanders win this game in regulation, I think they put the Columbus Blue Jackets in their rearview mirror as far as teams that they have to worry about. They'd be up 4 points with a regulation win with 12 games to go. Wouldn't completely take the Blue Jackets out, but it would certainly go a long way. If the Blue Jackets win in regulation, the Islanders and Blue Jackets would both be tied with identical records with 12 games to go. And, it just, again, it's one of those 4-point games that are so important in the playoff race. And you want to win this in regulation. The Islanders may be catching Columbus at the right time. They have lost 6 games in a row as of right now, and they are having trouble scoring. Their last game was a 6-3 loss to Pittsburgh, but before that, they lost 1-0, 2-1, 4-0, and 4-0 against Vegas, the Rangers, the Devils, and Florida. So they're having difficulty scoring goals right now. After scoring a lot most of the season, Columbus now 11th in the league in goals scored, 26th in goals against, so their defense has been an issue. Special teams, like the Islanders, the Blue Jackets have had trouble with both the power play and the penalty kill all season. The power play is just 24th in the league, the PK 25th. Now, both of those numbers are better than the Islanders, but still not very good. Elvis Merzlikins is the top goalie. Daniil Tarasov is the backup. Zach Werenski right now with 49 assists and 69 points leads the team in scoring. Right now, Kirill Marchenko has 25 goals, one of 5 players with 20 or more goals on the Blue Jackets roster. The line combinations: Seth Monahan, Dmitry Voronkov, and Marchenko are the top line. The young star and rising player Adam Fantilli is the second line pivot, with Captain Boone Jenner and Kent Johnson flanking him. Justin Danforth, center Zach Aston Reese, and Mathieu Olivier on the third line. And then it's Sean Curley, James Van Riemsdyk, and Luke Kunin on the fourth line. Zach Werenski is the power play quarterback and the top offensive defenseman on this team. He's teamed with Dante Fabro on the top pairing. Ivan Provorov and Damon Severson, familiar players from the division. They're on the second pair, and then Denton Matachuk and Eric Gabranson are the third pairing on defense. Elvis Merlinkins and Jet Graves right now are the goalies, with Owen Sillinger, Cole Sillinger, Kevin LeBanc, all on IR, Daniil Tarasov out, and Jake Christensen listed as day-to-day. The Blue Jackets are reeling right now. They look like they were in control of their destiny, were going to make the playoffs, and they just kind of fell apart in the last 6 games. The Islanders have to make sure they stay down. This is a team that the Islanders cannot afford to let them get back up off the mat and get back into the playoff hunt. Now, the good news for the Islanders, Columbus is 11 games over 500 at home, but they are only 11, 20, and 4, or 9 games under NHL 500 on the road. So this is not a good road team, and the Islanders have to keep it that way tonight against the Blue Jackets. Huge, huge game for the New York Islanders, and got to keep them. I'm going to say this. The first goal tonight is vital for the New York Islanders, because Columbus is a team that has been struggling to score lately, that has lost 6 games in a row. 10 days ago, it looked like they were in a really solid position to make the playoffs against all odds after overcoming the tragedy of the passing of Johnny Gaudreau this offseason and everything that has sort of happened to this team. Boone Jenner, their captain, missed a good chunk of the season. And then all of a sudden, the bottom just fell out. So the Islanders have to keep them down when they're down and not let them get back up. Blue Jackets score first, and maybe their confidence returns, and that could mean trouble for the New York Islanders. And again, they'll need Ilya Sorokin to do his thing tonight. And the Islanders' power play has to take advantage of a struggling Columbus penalty kill tonight as well. Time now for our Islanders' birthday of the day, and Sunday was the 68th birthday of former Islanders forward John Tonelli. The Milton, Ontario native, a second-round pick of the Islanders in 1977, played 3 seasons in the WHA with the Houston Aeros of the World Hockey Association, and played well there, had back-to-back 20-goal seasons. Joined the Islanders for the 78-79 season, was a member of all 4 Stanley Cup winning teams, and stayed with the Islanders until late in the 85-86 campaign, where he played for the Flames, the Kings, the Blackhawks, and briefly for the Nordiques. Played in 1,028 career NHL games, 325 goals, 836 points, 911 penalty minutes, add 40 goals and 115 points in 172 postseason games. His best season statistically, 84-85, 42 goals and 100 points for the Islanders in that year. And Tonelli, just a huge part of the Islanders dynasty and their success. His most memorable game as an Islander, April 13th, 1982. Game 5 of the opening round Patrick Division semifinals. Islanders and the Pittsburgh Penguins. Islanders won the first 2 games of this series, 8-1 and 7-2, and then lost the next 2 in Pittsburgh. So the Penguins forcing a game 5, which was the deciding game of the series. And amazingly enough, the Penguins were up 3-1 with about 5.5 minutes left in regulation time. And then Mike McEwen scored on the power play to make it 3-2, and that's when John Tonelli went to work. With just 2 minutes and 21 seconds left in regulation, Tonelli scores a big goal off Michel Dion, who played very well for Pittsburgh in this game. Billy Smith, of course, the Islanders goalie. Gord Lane and Ken Morrow, the assist that ties it. And then 6 minutes and 19 seconds into overtime, Tonelli scores his second goal of the game. Bob Nystrom and Mike McEwen with the assists. And the Islanders dynasty stays alive. The Islanders go on to win their third straight Stanley Cup that year, on their way to 4 straight cups. But it doesn't happen without a magic moment like that from John Tonelli, who tied the game late and won the game in overtime to keep the Islanders from exiting the playoffs in the opening round in 1982. So John Tonelli is our Islanders' birthday of the day. I want to thank everyone for making Locked On Islanders your first listen today. For your second listen, check out the Locked On NHL podcast, bringing you the daily league-wide stories that matter with the local coverage you love from Locked On. Find Locked On NHL on YouTube or wherever you listen to podcasts. It's part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. If you have a question, a comment, maybe a topic you'd like us to discuss on a future episode, email us at lockedonislanders@gmail.com. And if you leave your first name and where you're from, we're happy to mention you on the show when we discuss whatever's on your mind. You could follow the show on X at Locked On Isles, and you could follow me, Gil Martin, on X at Ice Wars, NYR, VSNYI. We'll keep you up to date on all things Islanders all year long, and I am live tweeting during nearly every Islanders home and road game, so join me for some instant insight and analysis. And it's great to talk Islanders hockey with you, game time or anytime. Everydayers, we are back tomorrow. We'll have our key takeaways from tonight's critical game against the Columbus Blue Jackets. So make sure you join us for that. We'll also have the latest Islanders news, notes, and happenings. Have a great day, everybody. Stay safe. And of course, let's go Islanders.